In 1895, Václav Loren and Václav Klement founded the company Slavia, initially focused on producing bicycles. 3 years later, they expanded into motorcycle manufacturing under the brand Loren and Klement. In 1905, they introduced their first automobile, the Loren and Klement Voiturette A. In 1925, they merged with the engineering company Škoda Works, and that's how Škoda was born. Let's not jump too far ahead. And besides, how and when did they start racing? First try at racing was with motorcycles in 1901 at the Paris-Berlin race. Narcis Podsednicek, a mechanic and workshop master at the factory. After several days, Podsednicek arrived in Berlin on his motorcycle from Paris. According to some sources, he was the only motorcyclist to complete the race, but only after the official end of the competition. In 1905, a new era began as they definitively ended with official participation in motorcycle races and shifted their focus to car racing. Their first car was the two-seater Voiturette A with a two-cylinder liquid-cooled V engine. In 1907, Inga Otto Hieronymus, an outstanding designer and European-level racer, joined the company. In 1908, the brand celebrated its first success in the Zbraslav Jilovist hill climb race, with the brand appearing on the results list in various categories, securing 6 first, 5 second, and 1 third place. Another triumph for L&K came in the Semmering Hill Climb Race in 1908, which was won by the aforementioned Otto Hieronymus. In 1912, the Alpine Ride competition was announced, stating that the automaker whose car would win 3 consecutive annual races without incurring penalty points would be awarded a perpetual trophy. The Mladá Boleslav car manufacturer participated in 5 races and won all of them. After World War I, the Loren and Klement company began producing trucks, but in 1924, after running into problems and being affected by a fire on their premises, the company sought a new partner. The year 1925 marked the merger of L&K with the Plzeň-based Škoda Works. This merger marked the beginning of modernizing production technologies. In 1935, the company participated in the 1,000 miles of Czechoslovakia race with the racing car Škoda Rapid 6, and the crew was awarded the prize for third place in their class. This success resulted in the motivation to create the Škoda Popular Sport Roadster with a rear axle and a more powerful engine from the larger Rapid model for the Monte Carlo Rally in 1936. The crew achieved second place in the under 1,500cc class and 20th place overall. During the occupation of Czechoslovakia in World War II, the Škoda Works were turned into part of the Reichswerke Hermann Göring, serving the Nazi German war effort by producing components for military terrain vehicles, military planes, other weapons components, and cartridge cases. The UK and US Air Forces bombed the Škoda Works repeatedly between 1940 and 1945 and resulted in the almost complete destruction of the Škoda armament works and about 1,000 dead or injured. When the Mladá Boleslav factory had been reconstructed, the car manufacturer continued its sports activities, and in 1946 they constructed the Škoda 1101, later referred to as the Tudor, that won the 1,000 miles of Montevideo race in 1948. The crew participated in the 24 Hours of Le Mans race in 1950 with the Škoda 1101 Sport. The development of a 2-seat open racing car with the internal designation 968 began in the spring of 1956. At the end of that year, the prototype Škoda 1100 OHC was presented to the world. It was derived from the Škoda 1101 Tudor and considered the successor to the Škoda Sport. It was built on a chassis based on a welded frame of thin-walled tubes and designed for endurance circuit races. Unfortunately, due to the worsening political climate of the Cold War, these vehicles never left the borders of what was then Czechoslovakia, preventing them from achieving international motorsport acclaim. The foundation of the Škoda 1100 OHC's construction was a lightweight yet rigid space frame made of thin-walled tubes. The front wheels were mounted on double wishbones, while the rear wheels were guided by an angled axle with trailing arms. Instead of the leaf springs commonly used in Škoda's production vehicles at the time, the engineers opted for more compact and lighter torsion bars. The engine was positioned behind the front axle, and the 5-speed transmission was placed behind the rear axle, employing a transaxle system which allowed for near-perfect weight distribution. With a 75-kilogram driver, the weight distribution ratio was 49.7 to 50.3% to the benefit of the driven rear axle. The heart of the car, a naturally aspirated 1.1-litre 4-cylinder engine, shared its aluminum block and crankcase with the Škoda 440 Spartak. However, the OHC overhead camshaft configuration, featuring 2 camshafts in the head driven by gears with self-lubrication, was a significant advancement. The combustion chambers were also modified, increasing the compression ratio to 9.31. The engine also boasted 2 independent ignition systems, Bosch's Dynamo battery system and the Swiss-made Scintilla Vertex Magneto. This setup allowed the engine to produce 92 horsepower at 7,700 revolutions per minute, with the ability to briefly reach 8,500 revolutions per minute. To produce 85 horsepower per litre of displacement was admirable at its time. Originally, it ran on high-octane aviation fuel, which flowed into 2 twin carburetors of the Czechoslovak brand Jikov, later replaced by Italian-made Weber. The engine was in the front, whereas the clutch, 5-speed transmission and final drive were concentrated in the rear, forming a single assembly unit, an advantage on the racetrack. Depending on the gear ratio settings, which were adjusted according to the nature of the racetracks at the time, its low weight, the low aerodynamic resistance of the elegant body, and the high-performance engine gave the car excellent acceleration and a maximum speed of up to 200 km per hour, 120 miles per hour. Because of its very light fiberglass body, the entire car weighed just 555 kilograms, 1223 pounds. Its design was truly captivating, often earning it the nickname of the Czech Ferrari. It was 3.88 meters long, 1.43 meters wide, 0.96 meters high, and had a wheelbase of 2.2 meters. Contributing importantly to the driving characteristics too was the independent wheel suspension. While there was a trapezoidal link axle at the front, the rear axle used triangular semi-trailing arm suspension. The drivers praised the accurate and quick steering as well as the removable 3-spoke steering wheel, which facilitated getting into the driver's seat. In the late 1950s, the advanced elements also included suspension of the 15-inch wire-spoked wheels with torsion bars. At the end of 1957, 2 open prototypes with light fiberglass bodies were built. In 1959, the designers in Mladá Boleslav built 2 more 1100 OHC coupe vehicles, but with enclosed aluminium bodies. The engineers managed to maintain the excellent driving characteristics while keep the total weight to 618 kilograms. The first public demonstration of the new car ended in a racetrack victory. Miroslav Fausek, an experienced factory driver, drove the Škoda 1100 OHC to victory at the Mladá Boleslav City Circuit in June 1958. Europe's complicated political situation at the turn of the 1950s and 1960s destined the car primarily to remain on circuits in socialist countries. The Škoda 1100 OHC Coupe's career, however, was short-lived, ending prematurely in 1962 due to changes in technical regulations and the general decline of the racing category for vehicles with engines up to 1,100 cc. In 1966, Škoda sold both cars to private buyers, as was customary at the time. The originality of the cars was further compromised by modifications for regular use. One of the cars was involved in a crash under a highway near Mladá Boleslav, where, although the driver escaped through the opening left by the shattered rear plexiglass, the car caught fire. The vehicle was subsequently dismantled, and the rear axle with the gearbox and differential was taken by the National Technical Museum in Prague, from where Škoda's museum managed to acquire them 15 years ago. The chassis, frame with the front axle, brakes, pedals, and other small parts, was preserved in a Czech private collection, and in 2014, Škoda managed to buy it back. Today, the experts from the Škoda Museum's restoration workshop are trying to bring one of these beautiful cars back to life, using the preserved chassis and engine of the original prototype.
Oh, this is the very definition of a sports car. This is what Ferrari should be making today, and Maserati, and Alfa Romeo. Very small. Very light, very fast and agile, frantic little dog. I love it. I absolutely love it.